ready?
You're on air.
So I did put it out on last night's net that if you're gonna come, bring your smartphone that has Echolink on it, or bring your handheld that has Echolink on it. We are running an Echolink repeater right here, right now. This is all that it takes. And this isn't a part of it. This is just for demonstration purposes. This antenna is not being used. We're using a dummy load. But if you've got a handheld and you can plug in 44660, go to 70 centimeters, 44660, and log in on your smartphone to W4DJW-R. Right? Then your name will come up in this list, right, when you log in, and you'll be connected into this node. When Johnny first asked me to do this, he said, can you do an Echolink presentation? Okay, so what is that? What is an Echolink presentation? Is it the users of Echolink, or is it the people that actually want to know how it works? Right? So that was my question to him. So he wanted me to do the users piece of it. How do me as a user, how do I use Echolink? So that's one way you can look at this. And that's what this is for, right? And then another piece of it is, how does it work? What is it doing? What's going on, right, when I do that? And that's what this is, right? So you can be set up on Echolink for the cost of a Raspberry Pi, okay? And you got to log in and get your certificate, right? You've got to be a legal Echolink user, right? And you're gonna see that in the presentation. So the first part of this is gonna be about, as a user of Echolink, what is it I need to know to be able to use it? And the second part is, once you get past that, if you're a ham radio operator, okay, it's highly likely you're interested in how things work, right? That's what attracted you to ham radio in the first place. Because the people that don't care how it works probably aren't a ham radio operator. So that's why this is the second piece of it. If you're just interested in the first piece, all right, we'll go through that. I'll show you some links to how to go look at the same information later, right? I'll get you started in the right path. And I've got a YouTube video that we can go through. It takes 21 minutes. I doubt we want to sit for 21 minutes and listen to that. We've got a couple options. We can hit the high spots on that. I can show you some links, and then we can get into the second half of how it works, right? To show you what's going on, what are the piece parts that you need to be able to stand up a link. It would be good if we had more people and more nodes out there, so that if my house became a smoking hole in the ground, somebody else could turn on their Echolink node, and we'd still have that Echolink, right? Despite my house being a smoking hole in the ground, okay? It's called redundancy backup. So that's the reason I want to show other people. This is a $34 computer, right? This is a radio that's been sitting in a box doing nothing for 5 years, right? I won this at the Waynesville Ham Fest 5 years ago, and never took it out of the box because I knew there would come a day like today when Johnny said, "Can you do an Echolink demonstration?" I said, "Yeah, that's that radio that's been sitting in that box for 5 years and never been used." Right? Really simple to hook up. Show you how it hooks up. I got it blown out into. You can see each individual wire that has to be connected from the computer to the radio to make it work. And you can see the software, the same software that we'll be using on our controllers to get it running. So, people that are interested in how do I use Echolink, raise your hand. Just want to see. Okay, so that's quite a few people interested in how it works. Raise your hand. So it's just about everybody wants to see both. So you were right and I was right. Okay.
Quick question.
We tried to guess.
Right, he said how it works, or you know, how do I use it? As a user of Echolink, how do I use it? What does it do for me? And that's what this is. Go ahead.
Quick question. What is the description on that radio? Is it a dual band? What is it?
This radio?
Yeah, that you were talking about. You pulled out the stuff at 5 years.
It's a Yaesu FT 7900R dual band. It says dual band on the manual.
Is there anything else special about it?
No.
Just a straight dual
It's
band.
got a 6-pin mini DIN in the back. Now there's a lot of different ways, and if we get that far, I do have some graphic files that I have on here that show you the pin out and how it works and how you figure out how to connect it up to the Raspberry Pi. All right, I do have some of that. But just about any of them, except for the really, really, really old radios radios that don't have any digital interface at all, you can hook them up to one of these things and away you go. This cable that's connecting the radio to the computer is an old PS2 mouse cable. Okay, pretty simple. Now, you can get fancy with that. One of the things I was looking at Amazon and buying one of these, and somebody said, "Why does that cost $26?" I just cut a mouse, take a PS2 cable off of an old mouse, cut it off, and use it. Problem with that is you're sending data up and down this line, and you've got audio cables that are going through there. And when you mix data traveling through a wire with audio traveling through a wire, you hear while people are talking. Okay, so they need to be shielded. So if I look down in the comments under that listing on Amazon, a ham radio operator made a comment and said, okay, this guy has clipped the end off of a PS2 mouse and he's selling it for $26, and that's not what ham radio operators need. Right, the two audio lines need to be shielded. They need shielding around them on the inside. A mouse didn't matter. Nobody's listening to the inside of what's going on with the mouse, so it worked just fine. But for a ham radio operator, they make other cables that are more expensive, $26 for a cable like that, but it's got, the audio cables are wrapped, right, in tinfoil, right, or a metal shielding object.
Has anybody ever taken apart a microphone cable? There's two of those shielded cables in what he's talking about.
So they cost more.
Transmit audio.
So they cost more, but this guy was selling them. He was selling old mouse cables like they were ham radio operators shielded 6-pin mini DIN cables, and they weren't. Right, and the ham radio operator kind of leaped on the guy and told everybody, you're not fooling us. Okay, so this is just a point. This, I think I looked this up. It's like 130 or 180 bucks, somewhere between 130 and 180 between where you get it. I tried to set this one up on it at first. It's got push to talk and it's got COS. COS is when the squelch comes off and you hear the static noise. The radio needs to be able to hear that somebody quit talking, so that it knows that okay, if I need to key up now, I can. Right? It needs to know that. I can push the talk when somebody else stops talking. So it needs to hear both of those. This one didn't have those. Right? This one did. There are ways to get around it. Like Johnny said, why don't you just go in through the mic cable? You can do that. That's another option. Right? I just didn't go that far. I just pulled this one out of the box instead, and hooked it up and got it working. And I can show you how to do that. That's what's really interesting to me. The using of it is fun. It's nice, but I really like to know how they work more than just using them. Okay. Any other questions? You're going to hear this guy say the same thing I'm going to tell you. Okay, just giving you, so this is part one. How do I use Echolink? You're going to hear people out there that say that's not really ham radio. Okay, well, what's the definition of ham radio? To JD, it might be something totally different than it is to me, than it is to Johnny, than it is to Steve. It's different. There's so many facets to ham radio, right? I could be interested in digital communications and doing digital like crazy. That's what ham radio is to me, digital on HF, right? Which is where I spend most of my time. Somebody else could be doing voice on 70 centimeters, right? And that's what ham radio is to them. The bottom line is, these boards, right? Whether it's a board inside your radio, whether it's a board on a computer board, the way they communicate across the different components that are in there is with a signal on a trace. And that signal on the trace goes so far, right? It goes through these wires. It connects the monitor to the computer. There's signals going up and down those wires all the time. When you plug that into an internet, that just extends that signal out further and lets you use other components. Just makes it bigger, right? And at the end, you're going to get RF in the end, right? And that's what a lot of people in ham radio think. If you're not generating RF, which, by the way, you generate RF on that board, on that computer, right? This computer generates RF, right? Inside here, you're generating RF. Wireless communications is what the FCC calls us. We're anything but wireless. You probably have more wires in your house than anybody who is not a wireless operator, right? So we use wires. So it just depends. You're going to hear that a lot, all right? I think we can benefit from what the guys that never had the internet learned and did and built. And I think the guys that never had it can learn from the internet generation. I think it's bidirectional and go either way. So So you're gonna hear both sides of the story. All right, and that's one of the things this guy's gonna tell you. And stop me at any time if you have any questions. You can watch these kind of things at home, right? You don't have to come here to watch this. The benefit is if he's saying something you don't understand, you have the opportunity to say, stop a minute, I don't understand that, and ask a question. I'm gonna show you a site that you can go to, echolink.org. They've got a tour that you can go on the Echolink site itself, so that you can follow that. And it's kind of organized as one everybody sees. And then there's these other people view, which is the one that we have here. And hopefully our internet access will stay up long enough to make this work. So this is the Echolink.org that I was telling you about. They've got right here on this page, take a tour, right? So anytime after we go through this, you can go through this tour. When you select that, it's gonna start telling you about how Echolink works and how many people there are, right? How many repeaters there are, and how, when you get down to the end of each page, you can continue with the tour, right? So that's the easiest thing to do, to go really get brushed up on Echolink. Now, how many people are using SVX link? This is the link I was telling you about later that I was going to tell you about. The current logins. If you click on this link and you look in here for, this tells you who's logged in, SVX. And you see all these little yellow bars over here? These are all SVX link stations. If I click on in this area, you can see where people have SVX in square brackets before the name of the repeater, right? And these are how many repeaters are running SVX right now. And these happen to be in Germany, right? These are German callers. So they're worldwide, and there's a lot of them. And you can see there's also a lot of repeaters on Echolink. So that'll give you an idea. There's a lot that aren't, but there's a whole lot that aren't. Okay? Now we'll get back to presentation. And this guy's going to tell you basically the same thing I did. If you have questions, stop. You won't stop me, and we'll...
Presentation about Echolink. I'm presenting this tonight at our local radio club, so I thought I'd do a quick video of it for posting for those who might have missed it. What is Echolink? Echolink's an augmentation of internet radio. Or let me rephrase that, of amateur radio via internet. It's an augmentation, it's not a replacement. It's just another mode of making contacts, digitally enhanced. Now, the exciting thing about this, especially for those with a technician class license, is you can work DX. You can talk to people in Europe, Australia, Japan, wherever, legally, using the internet to connect to radios in their country. For example, 2-meter repeaters, 440 repeaters, 220 repeaters, etc. And it's legal for a technician to do that. I could go into a lot more on that, but let's concentrate on the big thing here. Technicians, you can work DX. And of course, as old timers, we can work DX too. It's a really good thing. So, if I could have a drum roll here. Excellent. And as I already told you, Echolink allows technician class and above to legally work DX worldwide. This is an example here of one way Echolink can work. We have a mobile station connected to a repeater. The repeater is connected to a PC on the internet. It goes across the internet to another computer, which is connected to an FM transceiver, connected to a repeater. Could be in the same country or another country. And of course, mobile stations can work that. Now, primarily in your use of Echolink, you'll probably be using your computer to connect to another computer into a repeater, or a person who has a link to their own radio, which is connected to their computer. When you look at the list on the Echolink software, you'll see an L behind the station Station is call letters, which means it's connected by a link, and R means a computer. If there's nothing there, it means it's just computer to computer. So, and does it work? It works quite well. It's been around for over 10 years. K1RFD, it created it, and it works very good. We'll have a little bit more to say about that in a minute. Now remember, technicians, you can DX. Technicians are above, as a matter of fact, which brings up the point that you must have a valid amateur radio license and prove it to use Echolink to even download it. So basically that consists of just faxing or scanning and emailing them a copy of your license, and usually within a day you'll get back the authorization to use. Echolink is totally free. There's no restrictions on how many computers you can have it on, although you can just work from one computer on a certain IP at a time. But it's really cool. Now, again, Echolink uses the internet. Other internet ham stations include the Internet Radio Linking Project, that's IRLP, Wide Coverage Internet Repeater Enhancement System, HamSpear, which is, I believe they do charge some, and there's a couple of networks. This one's in the Netherlands, that one's in Germany. But the big question, is Echolink really ham radio? Well, I have had a number of conversations with some old type hams that do not think that Echolink is really amateur radio. For example, you can't use Echolink to qualify for the ARRL's DXCC award, which is for working 100 countries or worked all states, etc. But this reminds me of a story that I lived through back in the 60s. I'm an old-time ham radio operator myself. I got my first license in 1963. And back in those days, the big mode of communications was AM. Everyone used plate modulation, big old AM transmitters that were cool. Well, no, they weren't. They were in pretty hot. But anyway, being a high school student at the time, I couldn't afford one of those big, nice radios like a HeatKit DX 100 or something on that order. So, but I did scrape together the money and bought a used NightKit T150, which was 150 watts. But it didn't use plate modulation, it used screen grid modulation, which was called somewhat in a derogative manner, scred modulation. And I would get kidded about that a lot. But luckily, single sideband was coming along then, and those who called my screen modulation scred called single sideband Donald Ducks. But who won out in the long run? It was single sideband because it was a more effective means of communications and is still generally used widely on the high frequencies, HF portions of the internet frequencies. So back then, some people, a few old-time hams didn't think single sideband was really ham radio, and of course the same about Echolink, but it is. Ham radio is, first of all, fun, and one of the main things we do as hams is enjoy talking to other hams, and certainly Echolink facilitates that. If you're an extra like I am, and you have a whole bunch of radios and everything, and you like to talk, work DX and everything, but the band's closed, well, get on Echolink. It's always open. Okay, 3 ways to use Echolink. We touched on this before, but you can do computer to computer, your radio to a computer, to another computer, to another radio, and this again can be a repeater station or just computer to computer. So again, yes, it's amateur radio for sure. It's just a new media, a new way of augmenting your enjoyment of hamming. And again, we have this illustrations from Echolink.org, which is the Echolink site and has a lot more information. So Echolink.org is where you go. Excuse me, is where you go to prove you have a ham license and download the software. Now, and again, I've already stole a little bit of my own thunder. Requirements to use Echolink. You must be an amateur radio operator, technician, or higher. You must prove this by scanning or faxing and emailing. Wait a minute, I got that backwards, didn't I? You must prove this by faxing or scanning and emailing a copy of your license. See Echolink.org for details. And of course, once proved, you can log in download and use Echolink. Now, downloading Echolink software. After registration is approved, you'll be able to log in using your call and download the Windows version of the program. Now, you can only get the Windows version on Echolink.org. However, there are versions for Mac, Linux, iPhone, and Android phones, and they're available elsewhere. For example, use Echoham from the Mac Apple Store, and the iPhone app you can get on the Apple App Store. Android from the Play Store. I have a Galaxy S5 phone and I run Android. I run Echolink on it probably more often than on anything else I have. I also have it on a Android tablet and on a couple of Windows 7 computers. And I'm in the process of setting up a Linux Echolink. On Linux you have basically two choices that I found. You can run on Wine, which is a Windows emulation program, or you can get SVX Link, which is you install and run under native Linux. And this is the download page on Echolink. You'll notice here you have to put in your call sign and your email address, and your call sign has to have been approved, or else it won't let you submit and download. But once you do this, I've done that. You can click on submit, and then you can go to download the Windows version, and there is information, FAQs and so forth on the Echolink.org site, which will guide you through installation. It's moderately easy. This is the Windows version of Echolink in operation on one of my Windows 7 computers. The only problem you're going to run into is this program requires certain ports on your computer to be open. For example, 5200 on TCP and 5198 and 5199 on UDP. And the software uses that to communicate with the Echolink servers. So if you have this is the only ticklish part of the installation, if you have a home router, for example, you may have to go into it and configure it to forward those ports. And there is information on the Echolink site and places like forwarding.com, which will walk you through step by step for different brands of home routers and so forth. But it can be done because I did it. Wasn't that hard. Hello, Scott Roberts. I'm W5BE, amateur radio video, and I'm going to show you how to make amateur radio contacts using a Windows 7 computer like this one. So we want to bring up the Echolink program. You have to be a licensed amateur radio operator to use this. It's currently fetching data. These are repeaters from all over the world. There's one in Jamaica, there's one in Tel Aviv, Israel, and there are a whole bunch in the U.S. Let's see if we can find anyone to talk to. Hollywood, California, but let's see, it's 9 o'clock there. Let's see if anyone's, let's see if anyone's around. Why not? We'll connect to it. Okay, it's connected.
WW6BJM repeater, Hollywood, California, 147.0.
Okay, I always want to go to Hollywood, so let's see if anyone's around. This is W5 Victor Echo, W5VA near, W5VE near Asheville, North Carolina. Anyone around, please? Okay, we're waiting to see if anyone comes back to us. Still a little early in.
I'm around, but I'm on a telephone call, and I just want to tell you that you're making it to Hollywood, California. WB6BJM, Hollywood, 73, use the road.
Okay, well, thank you. I always knew I would eventually make it to Hollywood. I appreciate the report. This is W5VE, W5 Victor Echo. Thank you. Okay, great. That's an actual QSO I had some time back on using Echolink. So that was my 2-meter walkie-talkie, and went on it on one of the local repeaters. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. Yesterday I was talking, I'm located in Asheville, North Carolina. You may or may not know, but I am, or just outside of Asheville. But yesterday I was talking through a repeater in Lopez Island, Washington, up in Washington State. And the guy that heard me on when I called QRZ and identified myself and gave my location as Asheville, North Carolina, he didn't know about Echolink, and he certainly didn't know that the repeater there Lopez Island was connected to Echolink, he was just trying to figure out how was a station all the way across the continent getting into that repeater. And he asked me in those terms, he says, how are you getting into this repeater? And I said, pretty much full quieting. But then I relented and explained how Echolink works. So basically, it's a computer-based amateur radio system that's free of charge. It's just a means, again, of enhancing your ham radio experience. Echolink, of course, allows hams to communicate with other hams using voice over IP, VoIP technology for at least a part of the path between them. Now, VoIP's been around quite a while, and I see I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll tell you about that in just a second. Echolink was designed by K1RFD, Jonathan Taylor, back in the early 2000s, and it's maintained by several volunteers now and does real well. Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you. Now, it resembles Skype. Skype is a famous voice over IP system that lets you use the internet to make regular telephone calls. But Echolink has the unique ability of linking to an amateur radio station's transceiver. Echolink typically offers better quality connections as well as higher reliability ones. Any cheap handheld within range on Echolink node can access and work worldwide without modification or special circuit being required. Now that's pretty doggone cool in my opinion, and it works really well. Now, the Echolink software operates in two modes. Single user mode is what most of us use, the one you probably use most, using your computer's microphone and speakers to connect with other hams worldwide. Remember, you're connecting to a server somewhere that's connecting to a repeater station or an individual station, and you're going out over the air. It's pretty neat to think that, like yesterday, I was talking to a guy in Bosnia. Bosnia's in the Balkans and Eastern Europe, was part of the old Yugoslavia. And they have a repeater on a mountain there on 145/700, and I was keying that repeater. My signal was going out over a rather wide area of Bosnia, and a gentleman over there thought that was pretty cool to talk to somebody in the United States, and we had a very nice conversation. His English was much better than my Serbian or whatever he spoke, but we understood each other very well. It's nice contact. I've worked in Norway and the Philippines and all over the world, using Echolink. Now, Echolink also offers a sysop mode, which allows for hooking up a VHF or UHF rig to your computer with a specially designed hardware interface, and this allows anyone within range of your radio, be it an individual or repeater, to use your computer as an Echolink node. In other words, you can hook into your local repeater, anyone in the world can work.
I'm going to pause it right there because that's what this is. What he just said, that's what we've got set up here. And that's a good lead in to what we have here. So your next thing now, once you get used to this, and I'm going to teach you guys something that you're going to know about Echolink that the rest of the population on the repeater doesn't know, okay? Most of them don't know. But he just told you something. From your handheld, you can connect to somebody in Jamaica, right? From your handheld, you can connect. You don't have to have all of this set up. So we have handhelds. I see a few of you brought them. So what I want to do as an example is have one of you connect this node to our 6.1 repeater. Now, is the net going in? Is it 9 o'clock?
No, you got 19 minutes.
Okay. So we could probably pick another repeater, but just connect it to our, we've got 19 minutes, so if we cause disruption on our repeater, we're not disrupting the net. So that's good. So I told you earlier, if you got a handheld, put it on 446.6, right? And one of the things you can do is exactly what he told you right here. You can connect our repeater to another node. How do you do that? You do it with DTMF codes. So how you do that is the first step is you have to turn on Echolink on the repeater. Remember I told you about the Swiss? They don't just pick up their handheld and start talking, right? They pick it up, they put in a sequence. Well, we've got our programs where you can pick it up and just start talking. I turned that feature off, okay? But you can't just pick it up and start using Echolink. You have to send it a number and a pound sign, right, to turn on Echolink. Then you can put in a node number and a pound sign, and it will connect to that node. And then you're on your, all you used was your handheld, right? You don't have a cell phone, you don't have anything, you just got a handheld. You pick it up, punch in the number 2, you key it up on the 6-1 repeater. We're gonna pretend 446.6 is the 6-1 repeater, right? But it's not, because we're not gonna disrupt it for this. But pick up your handheld, punch in the note, key it up on 446.2, and there's no shift on this, by the way. If your handheld is shifting when you do that, you need to turn the shift off, right? Because we're on a simplex repeater here. So you key it up, you press 2 pound, right? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna see in the log where 2 pound said that it connected, it turned on the Echolink module, right? And that's what happens on the 6-1 repeater. So what happens here, same thing that you see happening here, will be the same thing that happens on the 6-1 repeater if you do this on 6-1. You punch in 2 pound, that loads the Echolink module into memory on the repeater controller, which is nothing more than a Raspberry Pi. And then you punch the node number of a node that you want the repeater, our repeater to connect to, and then you punch in the pound number, and it will connect, okay? So you got your setup?
Yeah.
So let's, one thing I'd like to do is let you guys see this. So I don't know if this is gonna work. We're gonna try putting this screen on so you can actually see what's going on when we do this. I hope this will work. Not very bright, is it?
Kill the lights.
Oh, there it is. I need my glasses to see that.
It's a Linux box you're playing with?
Yes, it is.
Basically does everything the Windows boxes do, which is based on everything that the old Unix boxes did back in the 80s.
Okay, that's bigger.
Bill Gates stays on
Okay, so you can
I'm
see-
worrying about this.
KI4JDO is logged in, they connected and they disconnected. Right? This is the log, this is the call that logged in, they connected. They stayed connected for a little while, that was Sean. And they were at EM83SM, that's their grid locator. And then they disconnected. So are you connected in now?
Yep.
Okay, so,
Is it 2 pound?
yes, 2 pound. By the way, the pound sign is the carriage return. On a repeater, you type something in and you hit enter. On the Echolink node, you put numbers in and then you hit enter. And enter is the pound key or the hashtag. Right? If you don't hit the enter key, nothing happens. So you are connected. It should say that it brought the Echolink. Last thing it said is it's deactivating the module. So you need to activate it.
Local node ID is 374704.
Okay, so it's already active. And if you do a 2 pound while it's active, it'll tell you what the local node ID, which is what it just did. Now, do you know the W4NYK repeater's node number?
I don't.
I've got it on here. We need to pull it up.
545072, I think.
There you go. There you go. So now if you key up, you plug in that 545072, 545072 pound.
XN2 Whiskey 4 November Yankee Kilo repeater.
You can do this. You can do this on your handheld today. Somebody's on our repeater. That's you, okay. Johnny was on.
Get out of there.
Throw me off.
Get out.
So anytime, you don't have to buy a thing if you've got a handheld, right? You just have to know what you're learning right now. That is, you activate the Echolink module, which when Dan did that, it was already active, so you didn't see anything come out in the log because he sent in a 2 and a pound, and it said, and if the module is loaded, a 2 pound means something different than if it's not loaded. So the module was already loaded. Then he just plugged in our node number and hit the pound key and let off, and now he's connected. So, and then Johnny threw out his call sign. If you talk to Johnny, say, call W4DY, W4DYH,
W4DYH radio check.
that's coming out over the repeater.
Keep it down for a little bit longer than you've been talking.
That's good, that's good. When you've got multiple nodes connected, this is a node. There's a node for the repeater. There's a repeater on the mountain. There's a handheld here. There's a handheld here. We've got to go through, we've got to connect all this up, and then we've got to disconnect all of those. And it takes more than a key and talk. You key, you wait a half a second, then you talk.
I think we're probably too close. We were feeding that.
Yeah, I turned it down, so hopefully that helps.
I'll turn this one down too.
Try holding it down for like maybe 5 seconds or something and then talk.
I did.
I did.
To the top of the mountain, back down here, back to the
I forgot to
mountain.
call someone. Radio check.
So you can do the same thing with another node. If you have a buddy that's over in Hollywood, right, or wherever they happen to be, and you want to talk to them, somebody in San Diego, right, and you want to talk to them, and they're a ham radio operator, and they've got a repeater near them, right? They don't have to have one of these, although it's only 34 bucks. So I'm encouraging people to understand the technology, also teaching you how to use it, but encouraging you to understand the technology and see that it doesn't cost much. Most all of you have antennas, right? I doubt anybody in this room doesn't have an antenna of some sort or a 2-meter radio. And that with a $34 Pi, and you can do what we're doing right now. And this is just connecting to the internet with a cell phone, right? I'm not connected to the internet with Wi-Fi in this building. I'm just I'm using my cell phone as a hotspot for the moment. Go ahead.
So he's transmitting to here.
Into this dummy load.
Right.
Right, his handheld hits this dummy load on 4.4. It's we're making it legal now, and that's another thing. Every 10 minutes you gotta identify yourself, so that's just keeping it legal, is all that is. So his handheld is close enough that he can get through this dummy load, right? This our radio hears him. It sends the signals that it has through this 6-pin medium, this old mouse pigtail, right? Old mouse without the 2 shielded wires. It comes in, and if you want to come up here and get a close look at it, you can see I just split those wires out so that you can see all of them. And 2 of those wires go to the audio. This is audio input. And 2 of those wires go over to what's called COR and PTT. COR means it's like you turn the squelch down on and you hear the static. When that goes down, it sends one of these pins on the Raspberry Pi to a high state. When it goes off, it sends it back to a low state. So the software can know whether somebody's talking or not, right? If the core is open, that means somebody's talking. That means you've keyed up. So it says, you know, I should be nice. I shouldn't key up on top of somebody else. So it's not going to key up because it knows the repeater is in use, right? And the push to talk is when it's not keyed up and you want to use it, he sent his signal from that antenna to this dummy load, through the radio, through this cable, to the software, and he gave it a command, right, to key up, right, and connect to this the other repeater, and it keyed up, and then when it comes back, it has to talk to him, right? When Johnny's talking, it goes to the repeater, right? The repeater goes to our Echolink node because he connected to our Echolink node, and then our Echolink node comes to this Echolink node. And then this Echolink node connects to this radio, and it transmits out this demo load into his antenna, and he hears John.
So basically, it's like that first diagram where you had the repeaters connected to the PCs and then the HTs
Right.
hitting this repeater, going through the internet, hitting that repeater, coming out on the other side. It's like
That would be
first
the two
diagram.
repeaters at the bottom of that diagram, when this was plugged into this laptop. It had towers, right, with cars out on the end. That's a car and that's a car, right?
Directional dominoes. Directional dominoes. You tip one domino, you link, 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 tip it back, link, 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 link.
Yeah, same thing. And it does take a second. You gotta key it up. When you make that many connections, you gotta be cognizant of connect, talk. Instead of talk, connect. And then your third word is what's heard over the air instead of your first two words. Okay, so you've gotta be cognizant of that.
Now, what is like time delay like through the internet when you've gone from this node onto the computer and it's going over the internet out to the West Coast? Is that even longer because of the distance traveled through the internet?
Coast to coast latency
Yeah.
on the network in the US is 40 milliseconds. That's not where your time is lost. You're spending a lot more time processing that audio and sending that audio
Through the
out to
conversion
BRARS.
nodes.
So every time you have to process the audio, you're probably taking 300 or 400 milliseconds. Whereas crossing the country is only 40 milliseconds. It takes 40 milliseconds across the United States. Right? It takes a lot longer to process that audio to get the good quality that you get. 300 milliseconds, that's not too bad. I mean, considering you're crossing country, right? Even though at the speed of light, you can go around the earth 7 times in 1 second. Right? That compared to that, it's pretty bad. But the thing about it is we are connected to a whole bunch of nodes. You don't necessarily have to do that. Right? If you just connect it to a repeater out in California and that repeater connected to that other ham, you don't have one hop. We have multiple hops here.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just because this is a demonstration, just to show you how simple it is to set one of these up. It's not a mystery to you. It's sitting here right in front of you. You see the components that it takes, and you see that it's working. And you can log into it. If you've got a smartphone, you can do exactly what Dan did in reverse. And that's the repeater making it legal, right? The first one was my call sign being legal, and you heard it come out there because this one was transmitting. That second one was our repeater on the mountain sending out its call sign every 10 minutes after you talked on it to keep it.
I was gonna ask you if you needed any separate licenses, but that node's tied to your call sign.
That node's tied to my call
No
sign. That's
separate.
why I have to scan a PDF file, and I have to convince the Echolink people that are going to issue me a node number that I am who I say I am. And they're gonna go to the FCC and see if my call is me and I am allowed to do what I'm asking them to do.
Okay, so
They're
it's
gonna-
just like a regular internet repeater somewhere, but it's just tied to you.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can have one and you can use it 3 different ways. You can have one node and you can use your node as on your smartphone, for example, you would just use your call sign, right? You can set up one of these, like you see it here, using a simplex repeater, right? It's not a repeater, it's just simplex. It just, when he keys, it's going directly into 446.6. When this one keys, it's coming out 446.6. It's not split into 2, it's not an offset, like a repeater has. It's a simple repeater. If that was the case, you would use your call sign -L, right, for local. You're a local station, you're walking around in your yard with your handheld, you've got a simplex repeater. When somebody talks to you on it, you can talk to them just like we did right here. And it's not a repeater that a whole bunch of hams are using. It's your own private repeater. If you're gonna put it up on like W4NYK-R, our repeater, you use a -R on it. So you can use your call sign 3 different ways, -L, -R, or nothing, like you're running it on your smartphone.
Okay.
Good question. Any other questions?
Isn't there also a way to do a conference server where you could have several nodes linked together? So instead of just keying up one repeater, maybe I'm keying up 5?
That's another thing. If you do set one of these things up at home, most of the time your internet connection is 100 megabits or less. unless you pay for a gigabit. You have to pay extra to get a gigabit. We had a 100 megabit connection up until a few months ago, and we switched over. When you switch over to a gigabit, you can have 30 people in a conference. You can build a conference. You can have 30 people logged in. And what happens is, it gets that one call that Dan sent in, and it'll send it out to 30 different people. You have to have some network bandwidth to send it out to 30 people at one time. If you have 30 people logged in, and they call that a conference. If you only have 100 megabits, it's gonna choke. It's not gonna work. In the Echolink software, you set that limit. So what I did is, I listened and I looked at the number of people that logged in, and I found at 8, it started getting really sluggish. So I trimmed it back to 6, and I said, no more than 6 can log in at a time. We're gonna bump you out. If the 7th one tries to get in, you've gotta wait till one of the existing one gets out before the 7th one can get in. Otherwise, you're just gonna choke everything up for everybody. Now that we're at 100 megabit or a gigabit, we can remove that restriction. All right, we won't have enough people to get in there to cause a problem.
So that's why I used to see cannot connect.
Because there was 6 people in there, you were the 7th person, you had to wait for somebody to leave before you could get in. Otherwise, it just was gonna stop it for everybody, right? Nobody would hear anything. But now it's why they do. Good questions, go ahead.
Now let me recap. He said a minute ago, we're going from his PC to the, to that, mobile through the resistor, the dummy load. It's a 50-ohm resistor. I couldn't remember what you call it. Anyway, it's going through the dummy load in lieu of the antenna. That's okay. It's going into there, then it's going into the Raspberry, and then it's going through your phone to the internet, and from there it's actually going to the
Node that he logged into.
okay, but that's actually that's in your house, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay,
that's in the
and
rear.
then it connects up to the mountain.
And then it hits another mobile radio, and it goes up to the mountain, and then it comes down to the mountain into Johnny's radio.
Gotcha. Okay.
You got it. You unraveled it. Those are some dizzy electrons, right?
It was a lot of, yeah.
They're getting spun all over. That's why you key it up, you wait for a half a second. I'm trying to discipline myself. When I get out there and I go mobile and I get on the radio, I try to key it up. I don't say anything. And they'll say my call sign, and then I'll unkey it. Because you could have another node that's connected to a conference that's got people connected everywhere. That connects to our node. They do it all the time. People will connect to a conference and they'll connect to our node. And when you have that many people connected together, it could take a while. So I key up, I wait a half a second. It's just the best practice. And then I talk, and then I unkey. Now, if I'm talking to somebody else, and we've got a QSO going on, I don't do that every time, right?
That's the net.
That was my oscillation.
Huh?
That's where I was feeling that. The one you just turned down.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
I was
that's the
trying
one
to
that's
figure out where it was
causing-
coming from.
It's coming from that.
Yeah,
Well, that's just so everybody could hear it, but that's okay.
Do we want to check in that as a group?
We give everybody's call, is that Fred? We'll drive him crazy if we give everybody.
Do you have to break the link once you established?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. You can sit in there for hours. I can put an idle timeout in there, but I don't do it because some people like to just sit on it for hours. And if somebody comes by, like the guy in Bath, England, used to talk to the guy that's down in below Anderson. They used to talk to each other all the time, and they used our repeater to do that. Neither one knew when the other one's going to come in. So the guy in England, he'd just go ahead and connect. He'd throw his call sign out there to see if the guy down there below Anderson was on yet, and he wasn't. So we'd just sit there and wait. 2 hours would go by, and the guy from below Anderson would call in, and they'd connect, and they'd get their QSO. So I'm not going to bump people out that want to do something like that. You can sit idle for as long as you want to while you're on it. Not taking up any bandwidth or anything if I'm not doing it. So, but if you wanted to, you could just send a pound sign by itself, right? Just a carriage return by itself, and it'll log you out, right? If you don't want to be logged into it. If you want to use your handheld for something different, right, you can do that. It'll just log you out.
So should I send pound now to disconnect?
And it'll disconnect you. Right. It'll disconnect our node from the repeater.
Will they hear the audio from my pound before it disconnects?
The software, as it was originally, would have said disconnecting, and they would have all heard you, and it would have interrupted the net, and that would have been very rude for us to do, so I chopped all that code out. It doesn't
Okay.
do that. So you don't have to worry about that. That code's gone. Now, that's us Americans thinking that would have been very rude, all right? Some of the things we do, just keying up and talking on radio, they think we're rude, so that's just culture shock. There's difference in culture.
Your node is out there now on the internet.
This one?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you can connect to it on your cell phone, W4DJW-R. Under repeaters, the port on repeaters.
How's the way to find the local repeaters that have Echolink?
That link that I was showing you, thousands of them.
So just go like Greenville, South Carolina, and see what it gets.
There's an Android app, Echolink Finder, that's just like Repeater Buck or R Finder, but it takes your GPS location and then plots around where all the other, where all the Echolink nodes are around you. So like one of these is W4NYK. So instead of having to scroll through that whole long list, you can kind of see, here's a node that's right close to me.
He's got the better answer than I do. That's a really good answer.
Yeah.
Me, I would scroll through, well, one of the things you can do, if you get one of these, and you have one of these files, you set something up like this, there's a command that will pull that whole page down for you, and I do a grep, it's a Unix search. I say, give me the whole list, and filter out all of the W4s, because 4 is our area, right here, and W4, it'll give me all of the, or K4, W4, something like that. So I try to make a filter to find it, but the way Dan found is the whole thing. Right? He can give you a map, and you can see it. Good utility.
And also, if you're using R Finder or Repeater Book, and you've just found a normal RF repeater, if you hit on that, if you click that repeater, R Finder or Repeater Book will tell you the Echolink node number if it has one.
What's the call on your node again?
W4DJW-R.
All right, I'm a dummy. Where do you put that into the Echolink? You should do a search.
Station.
Yeah.
Do a search.
How do you get past that?
When you sign on the internet, you get your call there. You know,
I'm wondering if there might be some code in the server.
when you sign in on, you listen into the internet, Echolink, it has your call on the -R.
Any other questions?
Mine is on -R.
I would, but it's, that was good.
I got, maybe if it's tangential, just tell me, it's not relevant, but when you connect the two nodes together, does the text chat also relay from one node to the other? The Echolink text chat?
Depends on which one that you're logged into.
Okay.
If you're logged into W4NYK, this one won't see it. If you're logged into this one, W4NYK won't see it. But,
So the text chat is local to the node?
who knows?
Okay.
Just checked in from Iowa. K4R, please check in. Kilo number 4, Sierra Mike Oscar, Scott.
Any other questions? I'd say we all logged in, or we fled Fred, but I'm not gonna, I don't wanna do that to him. I'm sure he'd appreciate the calls, but he burned up the lead in the pencil. All right, no more questions? We'll adjourn.
Good
All right,
stuff.
back to John.